But before Caitlin Clark's season-ending injury, WNBA tickets were averaging $89. The moment she went down, price crashed nearly 30%, plummeting to $62 a seat. That's kind of crazy. And there's a lot of reasons for this, but obviously the biggest reason is
the WNBA is facing a major crisis, and the most obvious reason is the brutal financial and ratings collapse that has unfolded since Commissioner Kathy Engelbert helplessly watched the league's fleeting spotlight dissolve into chaos. What was once heralded as explosive growth now feels like a nightmare, unraveling quicker than a popped balloon.
The WNBA and the Indiana Fever did not want people to know that Caitlin Clark was going to be out for the season. I can tell you, from the very day that they decided to let that go public, everything has dropped off a cliff. Views on this channel, the television ratings, the interest, Thanos snapped out of existence. People were trying to hang on to the possibility this whole time. Look, so many people stayed engaged with the team because they thought the cavalry was coming.
What set this disaster in motion? The Indiana Fever's bombshell announcement that Caitlin Clark won't return for the rest of the 2025 season, with their only true star sidelined. The WNBA is left confronting a harsh truth without Clark. The league risks being reduced to an overpriced exhibition that fans quickly lose interest in. The financial fallout from her season-ending announcement has hit like a sledgehammer. Playoff ticket prices have collapsed by nearly 30% overnight, with games that once commanded $200 seats now begging for buyers at just $25. This isn't just a dip, it's a freefall exposing how dependent the league's entire economic engine has become on Caitlin Clark's presence and star power alone.
Late July, the WNBA proudly flaunted ratings for the All-Star Game, which drew 2.2 million viewers. Of course, they conveniently failed to mention that ratings were down 36% from the record ratings that Caitlin Clark pulled the year before. Early August, ESPN pointed out that the Seattle Spankers and the Indiana Felines, without Caitlin Clark, drew 1.6 million on ABC. ESPN claimed that WNBA ratings were up 20% over last year, mostly without Caitlin Clark playing. But over the last 3 or 4 weeks, both the WNBA and the media have been strangely silent. I wonder...
The Indiana Fever, once driving premium ticket sales all season, saw prices collapse the moment Clark went down. Road game tickets plunged 71%, falling from an average of $137 to just $80. This is a full-blown market crash, a glaring reminder that the WNBA's lifeline rests almost entirely on the shoulders of one transcendent player. The 2025 WNBA season was hyped as the league's big breakthrough, a year of record crowds and unprecedented revenue. Instead, it's turned into a brutal lesson in how quickly a house of cards can collapse. Clark, who never missed a single game in college or her rookie year, was sidelined after just 13 appearances in 2025 due to serious injuries, ripping the heart out of the league. The so-called arrival of the WNBA is now exposed as smoke and mirrors, completely dependent on one star's gravitational pull.
Guys, the WNBA are currently treading dangerous waters. It's sharks out there, y'all. It is sharks out there in the deep ends of that water. Reality is hitting, and the playoffs have the potential to expose even more. Ratings could potentially crash in this year's WNBA playoffs without Caitlin Clark. Networks have their eyes peeled to what is going on, and ticket prices plummeted 30% while Caitlin Clark was out with her.
With Clark gone, the numbers don't just dip, they crater, dragging the league back to its usual irrelevance. The financial fallout leaves no room for denial. While playoff ratings are going to be a flaming ass fire, the most damaging aspect of this crisis isn't just the immediate financial impact, it's the complete evaporation of sports media interest in the WNBA. Major networks and sports commentators who had been treating the league as must-cover content are now cooling off faster than ice cream in a freezer. The same media personalities who proclaimed the WNBA's breakthrough moment are quietly shifting their attention back to more profitable sports coverage, leaving the league scrambling to maintain relevance without its biggest storyline.
And again, she's only on one team, but a very big chunk of the total attendance in WNBA is from the Indiana Fever. They have the second highest home attendance, and teams are literally moving arenas. So yeah, a lot of teams, whether it be the Lynx opening the Upper Bowl, whether it be the Wings, the Dream, the Sky, all of these teams moving games. All of these teams are moving games for the Indiana Fever, regardless of who it is. They all have to sell those seats. And a lot of people don't want to go, and it's super cheap. Like, it's a lot easier to fill a 10,000 seat arena without Caitlin Clark than to fill 20,000. So you're going to have to find a way to do it anyway, which is what a lot of people are going to be doing, trying to sell tickets.
Sports media outlets that had dedicated significant coverage to the WNBA throughout Clark's meteoric rise are now reducing their segments, with some networks reportedly pulling WNBA content entirely from prime programming slots. The brutal reality is that sports media follows ratings and fan engagement, and without Clark generating headlines and viral moments, the WNBA has lost its hook for mainstream audiences. ESPN, which had invested heavily in WNBA coverage during the Clark era, now faces the uncomfortable truth that their programming decisions were entirely dependent on one player's star power.
The WNBA playoffs begin on Sunday. Have you noticed that no one is talking about it? This time last year, the WNBA was dominating talk shows on ESPN and FS1. Content creators on YouTube were flooding the platform with WNBA videos. This year, it's complete silence. Obviously, ratings for the playoffs are going to be a flaming ass fire. But if I'm the WNBA, I am concerned about
Perhaps the most telling indicator of the league's desperation is how viewership numbers have completely collapsed without Clark on the court. Games that would have drawn over 1.8 million viewers with her are now struggling to reach 200,000, a staggering 89% decline that demonstrates just how artificially inflated the league's popularity had become. Even matchups between supposed rivals like the Chicago Sky and Indiana Fever, which previously generated massive ratings battles between Clark and Angel Reese, are now drawing audiences so small that networks are reluctant to release the embarrassing viewership data.
We talked about Jason Whitlock disowning the WNBA. True to his word, hasn't spoken a lick about the WNBA since. Colin Cowherd trashing the WNBA. It's Caitlin Clark and only Caitlin Clark. Last year, he used to lead shows talking Caitlin Clark, talking WNBA. This year, with her injury, didn't even bother wasting more than 10 minutes talking about the WNBA this year. No Shanae, no Elle Duncan, no Monica McNutt, none of those appear.
The ticket price collapse extends far beyond just Indiana Fever games. WNBA playoff contests across the league are experiencing dramatic price drops, as fans realize that without Clark, the product simply isn't compelling enough to justify premium pricing. This represents a fundamental shift in market demand that threatens the league's entire business model. The most infuriating aspect of this entire situation is how preventable it was. Clark's season-ending injury didn't happen in a vacuum. It was the result of a league that failed to protect its most valuable asset while allowing a culture of excessive physicality to flourish around it.
Ratings for nationally televised games have mysteriously disappeared. I knew the WNBA lived in a world of make-believe, but I never realized they were magicians. It seems when ratings fail to meet expectations, the WNBA makes ratings disappear faster than pants at the Butt Bongo Festival. Sports Media Watch, which is the go-to source for sports ratings, Sports Media Watch, they have not updated WNBA ratings since August 20.
From quad injuries in May to multiple groin injuries throughout the summer, Clark's body broke down under the relentless physical targeting that the WNBA not only allowed but seemingly encouraged. The league that should have been building protective systems around their golden ticket instead watched passively as their entire financial future was systematically destroyed by poor officiating and inadequate player protection protocols.
See, now you know, them Caitlin Clark tickets was hard to get your hands on. It don't matter if she was playing in LA, Indiana, Atlanta, Seattle. It did not matter. Afghanistan. It didn't matter. It was hard to get your hands on a Caitlin Clark ticket. Y'all see how many people showed up in Iowa? They could have filled up a football stadium. A football stadium. Super Bowl. Yeah, that is the demand for
Commissioner Kathy Engelbert now finds herself in the impossible position of trying to maintain league credibility while watching the foundation of the WNBA's newfound success crumble in real time. The woman who had been confidently discussing expansion plans and increased revenue projections must now confront the harsh reality that her league's entire growth strategy was built around one player who is now watching games from the sideline. Engelbert's nightmare scenario, a league that returns to pre-2024 relevance levels, is playing out exactly as critics had warned it would.
Other than a Nike commercial, other than a Gatorade commercial, how many commercials have you seen of companies putting WNBA players as the face of their commercial? I can't think of one. The only commercial that comes to mind is the Paige Becker's Coach commercial, and they don't even put that on television. That seems to be strictly a League Pass commercial that they show us while we're watching WNBA on League Pass. Other than that, has there been any State Farm commercials not featuring Caitlin Clark that you've seen throughout this season?
The league's desperate attempts to manufacture alternative storylines in Clark's absence have fallen completely flat with audiences. Despite efforts to promote other players and create compelling narratives, the viewership data reveals that fans simply aren't interested in the WNBA without Caitlin Clark. This isn't a temporary dip, it's a fundamental rejection of the product when stripped of its primary attraction. The harsh mathematical reality is that the WNBA without Clark generates the same level of fan interest as it did before her arrival, virtually none.
The whole sports media is upset at the WNBA for what they've been doing to Caitlin Clark. You hear me? Depriving everybody from enjoying the game of basketball. You hear me? She put women basketball back on the map. Yes, the WNBA has been irrelevant. And I'm glad everybody is speaking up. Colin Cowherd, Jason Whitlock, Stephen A. Smith, Skip Bayless. Yeah, everybody upset. Bruh, like, these women, they so petty, bruh, and they don't even care, dog. They don't mind hurting themselves just to hurt you, bruh. That's crazy.
Financial implications extend far beyond just ticket sales and television ratings. Merchandise sales, which had exploded by over 500% during her rookie season, are now facing severe declines as retailers struggle to move WNBA products without the Clark effect driving demand. Corporate sponsors are also reassessing their commitments, knowing their investment was tied to one person. The most damaging revelation is how quickly the sports world has moved on. Social media engagement has plummeted, sports talk shows have reduced WNBA coverage, and the casual fans drawn to the league by Clark have already redirected their attention to other sports. This isn't just a setback, it's a complete reversal of the momentum the league had built.
Fans shared similar reactions to the drastic change in ticket prices following Clark's injury. Because it's unwatchable without her, someone else added, did her injury deflate ticket prices or just prove she's the entire league's economy? Another person wrote, honestly, I'm surprised it isn't more than that. I would have guessed 50%. No matter what you think about Clark, she brings people to watch. We're lucky to be able to see her. I hope she comes back strong. You don't have to like her, but she is the headline and puts butts in this.
What we're witnessing is a complete exposure of the WNBA's fundamental business model flaws. The league that had been celebrating record-breaking attendance and unprecedented television deals is now confronting the reality that their entire growth story was dependent on one player's individual appeal rather than genuine, sustainable interest in women's basketball. Without Clark, the league's metrics are reverting to their historical norms: low viewership, minimal media coverage, and struggles to fill arenas even at discounted ticket prices. The implications are perhaps the most devastating aspect of this crisis. The WNBA playoffs, which should represent the league's premier showcase, are now entering their most crucial stretch without their biggest draw. Television executives who had been banking on Clark-driven ratings are now facing the prospect of playoff games that struggle to reach even 500,000 viewers, which creates a cascade effect where reduced viewership leads to decreased advertising revenue, impacting the league's ability to maintain salaries and expenses.
I will never understand why anyone in the WNBA picks on Caitlin Clark. I mean, I think we're kind of over that phase. I think people just know she is that person for the league, but she is literally the reason they're flying planes, charter planes to games. Like, she is the reason that they're on ESPN consistently. They're not on ION all the time. They're on ESPN, especially once the NBA playoffs end. They're on ESPN all the time. Like, that was not the case before Caitlin Clark arrived. And it still puzzles me that like one player transformed the league and like she was the chosen one. We've talked about that all the time here. But the bottom line is she legitimately is
The most telling aspect of this entire catastrophe is how it validates every criticism skeptics had raised about the WNBA's supposed breakthrough. Critics who argued that the league's growth was artificially dependent on one player's star power have been proven absolutely correct. The market has spoken with brutal clarity. WNBA basketball without Caitlin Clark is a product that most consumers simply don't want to buy. Commissioner Engelbert's legacy will be defined by how catastrophically she mismanaged the league's most valuable asset. Instead of building protective systems around Clark, Engelbert presided over a system that allowed excessive physicality to flourish while failing to adequately protect the player responsible for the league's entire financial resurgence. The result is a season-ending injury to the one person whose presence made the difference between relevance and irrelevance for the entire league. The WNBA's current crisis serves as a brutal case study in how quickly artificial success can evaporate when built on unsustainable foundations. The league that had been proclaiming its arrival as a mainstream entertainment option is now scrambling to maintain basic audience interest without its primary attraction. Ticket prices are in free fall, television ratings are approaching historical lows, and media interest is rapidly diminishing, all because the league failed to protect the one asset that made its recent success possible. The harsh mathematical reality facing the WNBA is undeniable. Without Caitlin Clark, they are returning to their pre-2024 state of irrelevance at a pace that even pessimistic critics didn't anticipate. The league that thought it had finally arrived is learning the brutal lesson that sustainable success requires more than one transcendent individual, and without that individual, they're right back where they started, struggling for relevance in a crowded sports landscape that has already moved on to more compelling entertainment options. The message is devastatingly clear. The WNBA without Caitlin Clark is exactly what it was before Caitlin Clark. A niche product that most sports fans ignore. The ratings, attendance figures, and ticket prices don't lie. Caitlin Clark was the WNBA's entire business model, and her absence has exposed just how hollow their supposed growth really was. Until she returns, the league will continue its rapid descent back into the sports entertainment obscurity where it spent most of its 28-year existence.